Hey everybody, I'm standing in front of one of our apple trees that I'm about to harvest. So when we moved in here about 5 years ago, there were 3 apple trees on our property that were planted by the previous owner. So these apple trees are probably about 20 years old. They're dwarf trees, but we don't really know what variety they are. We can make some guesses, but we don't know for sure. So lots of people move into old farms, old homesteads, backyard apples, and you don't know exactly when to harvest your apple. So I'm going to show you the #1 way to know that your apple is definitely ready. So some people say color, but if you don't know what color your apple's supposed to be, that's not going to be that helpful. Some people say size, but apples are different sizes. Twisting off the tree, the taste of the apple. But you don't want to pull your apple if the sugar content isn't as high as it can be. So I'm going to pick these apples, and then I'm going to tell you the secret to knowing if your apples are ready to harvest or not. This is definitely good if you only have 1 or 2 trees so that you can make the most of your apples. I'm making applesauce, probably some apple vinegar and some apple butter, some cobblers. But I want to make use of my apples this year, and I want to make sure that I pick them when they're ready. I'll let the horses have this one. Get me an apple. Oh, and that one fell, which is fine. Apple time. Very unique looking apple. Here's some of our apples we'll be harvesting right now, hopefully. I will in a minute, yeah. I'm gonna feed Wyatt, our donkey, one of our apples. Here, buddy. Here, Wyatt. Wyatt, come here, bud. You want an apple, don't you, buddy? Okay, I was gonna give Wyatt one. If it gets one, I want to give Wyatt one, but he didn't come over here. Oh, and he's pooping. Animals do that. A little apple. Hey, buddy. Tried to give you one and you just kept going, man. Here, down here, dude. Wyatt, he's a good boy. He's a beautiful guy. Well, if you give one horse an apple, you gotta give them all an apple. Corn dog wants one?
Corn dog, you guys.
You're on.
I want a piece. Izzy.
Oh.
Oh, it's fair game now. Corn dog, hurry. Hurry. I don't want to.
You're feed him. Just dropped it.
Grab the bag. That's all I used to do. Give him treats and then whoop him.
So this is one of our apples, and before I harvest the rest of them, I'm going to show you how I know this apple is ready to be harvested. We have 3 apple trees on the property. It seems like every year there's one that doesn't do great, one that does pretty good, and one that does okay, and they kind of switch places. So a tree that did great last year has only 4 or 5 apples on it this year. So I'm going to show you how I know this apple is ready to be harvested. It's not the color, it's not the size, it's not if it twists off easily. Those can be helpful, but if you don't know what color it's supposed to be, if you don't know how big your apple's supposed to be, that's not going to be that helpful, right? A lot of us have old apple trees on our property that weren't planted by us. There's lots of different varieties of apple trees. They're usually made by grafting. So a person will find an apple tree that they really like that apple, and they graft from it, not from seed. They graft it onto another rootstock, and then that becomes a variety. But we can also have just apple trees grown from seeds, and that is a unique individual tree. So that tree has apples that are different from any other tree, and it probably is very similar to what its parents' heritage was, and it's probably going to be a similar apple, but we don't know because of genetics, right? So some apples are ready to harvest in early July all the way to October. There's probably even some June apples. So I'm going to show you the #1 way to know that this apple is ready to be harvested, and I gotta cut it open. Right here, this is what's telling me that these apples are ready to harvest. Right here. Okay, so you can see, sorry, my chickens are in the background going cray cray. You can see that the seeds are dark. They're a reddish brown. Let me pick one out for you. Here's one of my apple seeds. So you can see that it is a dark seed now. It's actually still a little bit light, so I could probably leave the apple another week or so. But this is how you know. The seeds go from white to dark. So these seeds start out the same color as the apple virtually. When you initially cut open an unripe apple, it's sometimes hard to see the seeds because they're very similar to the flesh of the apple. As the seeds mature, here's a few more that have fallen down. As the seeds mature, they turn red. Red-brown. Most of us aren't familiar with this because most of us get our apples from the store, and you've never sliced open an unripe apple because by the time your apple gets to the store, it's ripe and ready to eat. So that's how I know these apples are ready. I actually checked a couple weeks ago. The seeds were white, which tells me that the maximum sugar content is not in my apples yet. So even the taste test is not a great way to know if your apple's good or not, or at its best, because even if it tastes great, it could taste a little bit better if you give it another week maybe, but it's a fine line. If you wait too long, your apples can go bad and the animals get them. That crazy noise is our donkeys. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm gonna make me some applesauce, and I'm gonna go ahead and harvest the rest of my apples.